gentlemen, Joe Frazier, Ken Norton, and the all-time champion of the world, Ella Fitzgerald.
Marilyn loved Ella Fitzgerald, and Marilyn made a deal with the head of the nightclub.
Ella Fitzgerald's life was full of sadness and struggle. She became a symbol of strength and hope for many people. But her story is heartbreaking.
She was unprepared for show business in every other sense but being able to sing like that. She didn't have clothes that you could wander out to the corner store in, let alone appear on a stage.
She faced many challenges, from losing her parents at a young age to fighting for respect in a tough music industry. How did she cope with these difficulties? Let's delve into the ups and downs of Fitzgerald's life and how it ended. Better than any other popular singer, Ella Fitzgerald realized the potential of the human voice as a musical instrument. And better than any jazz musician, Fitzgerald innovated her genre and evolved alongside it. Born on April 25, 1917, in Newport News, Virginia, she had a tough start in life. Her parents, William Fitzgerald and Temperance Tempie Henry, weren't married when she was born. They split up soon after. Tempie later got together with Joseph de Silva, a Portuguese immigrant, and together they raised Ella and her half-sister, Frances.
My mother had a very beautiful classical voice. They tell me that my father was a guitar player, but I don't know because I never met him.
Ella's life took a dramatic turn when she was just 15 years old. A car crash left her mother seriously hurt, and sadly, Tempie died soon after. After the accident, Ella lived with Da Silva for a year, but soon she moved to Harlem to stay with an aunt. This was a big change for her. Harlem was famous for its lively arts and music scene, which was perfect for a girl with Ella's talent. But life with Da Silva had been difficult. Many people believe he treated Ella badly, so leaving him behind was a good decision.
It's here that the story veers away from Ella's own account. Her mother, Tempie, died when she was 15, not saving someone from an accident, as Ella claimed, but suddenly and unexpectedly of a heart attack. And the next phase of Ella's life was to be much darker and much more troubled than she would have had us believe.
When Ella arrived in Harlem, her past began to catch up with her. She started skipping school and got involved with the wrong crowd. She found some part-time work as a numbers runner for the mob and acted as a lookout for a local bordello. Unfortunately, this led to trouble, and the police arrested her. She was sent to a reform school in Hudson, New York. Ella faced some tough teenage years. Some stories even say she escaped from the reform school and was homeless for a time. But through all this, she found comfort in music and dance. Ella loved to listen to the Boswell Singers, a popular group at the time. Their lead singer, Connie Boswell, inspired Ella's early singing style.
Three nice middle-class ladies, you know, but they made music that swung really hard. And Connie Boswell, the lead singer of the Boswell Sisters, was Ella Fitzgerald's hero.
Music became Ella's escape from her troubles. She began to sing and perform, and her talent started to shine. It wasn't long before she became known for her unique voice and style. Fitzgerald's big break came at age 17, when she put her name in to perform at the Amateur Talent Night at the Apollo Theater. Fitzgerald had planned to dance, but after watching the reigning dance duo, the Edwards Sisters, she decided to sing.
She was going to get on the stage and dance, and Ella was the first one that they called, and she got out on the stage, and she was scared to death.
As she inched on stage, according to Fitzgerald in the documentary, Ella Fitzgerald, Something to Live For, someone in the famously tough crowd hollered, "What's she going to do?"
And she started singing. When his eyes say yes, and you're wrong in your guess, that's Judy, my Judy.
What she was going to do was stun the crowd. Fitzgerald wowed them with renditions of The Object of My Affection and Judy imitating her favorite singer, Connie Boswell, and won first place. From that exposure, Fitzgerald met bandleader Chick Webb, who was looking for an accompanying female singer for Charlie Linton. After a few trial gigs, Webb asked her to join the band for $12.50 a week. Still a ward of the state, Ella Fitzgerald was paroled to Chick Webb's band, as noted by history. By 1938, Fitzgerald had brought the big band acclaim when she helped co-write the nursery theme, A Tisket, A Tasket. Sadly, Chick Webb died of tuberculosis in 1939, and Fitzgerald lost her friend and father figure. It was her turn to take the lead at just 22. Renamed Ella and her famous orchestra, the group went on to record 150 songs before disbanded.
The first time she ever walked on stage. And ladies and gentlemen, Miss Ella Fitzgerald. And when she came on, she wasn't that attractive. I mean, she wasn't well dressed. I mean, she was a kid that from the street, we couldn't believe what we were looking at.
She faced many challenges and doubts from others. Despite her amazing voice, people didn't always see her potential because of her simple appearance. She wore eyeglasses, had unkempt hair, and dressed modestly. Some even felt she didn't look right for the stage. When jazz drummer Chick Webb first saw Ella, he wasn't sure about hiring her. According to the Houston Symphony, he told another musician, "You're not putting that on my bandstand." Webb was hesitant because Ella didn't fit the image of a singer back then, but Webb's band took a chance on her, and soon Ella proved she was more than capable, as earlier mentioned. Coming from a tough background, Ella had spent part of her youth on the streets and didn't have anyone to teach her about grooming or style. Her bandmates had to show her how to dress for performances and keep up with the beauty standards of the 30s. At first, they even teased her about her shoes, dresses, and hair. But Ella didn't let these comments bring her down. She kept her focus on her music. "I used to wish I was pretty," Ella said once. But her cousin Georgia told her to always smile. She believed that if she smiled, people would like her.
She was unprepared for show business in every other sense but being able to sing like that. But she didn't have clothes that you could wander out to the corner store in, let alone appear on a stage.
Ella's talent quickly overshadowed any doubts people had about her looks. Her sweet voice and perfect timing made her a sensation. By 1938, she had her first big hit and introduced audiences to scatting, a fun way of singing where she made up sounds and rhythms. Even though she was a star, many high-end nightclubs wouldn't hire her. But in 1954, things changed when a famous actress named Marilyn Monroe became her friend. Marilyn had just starred in Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, and her popularity was skyrocketing. She adored Ella's music and wanted to help her succeed. Ella later got the chance to perform at Macambo, a well-known club in West Hollywood. At first, the club didn't want to book her because of her appearance, but Marilyn stepped in. She promised the club's owner that she and her celebrity friends would sit in the front row if he gave Ella a chance. Marilyn's offer was too good to refuse, and the club agreed.
Marilyn loved Ella Fitzgerald, and Marilyn made a deal with the head of the nightclub that if they would book her, she would come every night. Marilyn would show up every night.
Ella performed at Macambo for a few weeks, and her shows were a hit. Stars like Frank Sinatra and Judy Garland came to see her, and the crowds loved her. Marilyn's support didn't stop there. She continued to use her influence to help Ella get more respect in the industry. Thanks to Marilyn, Ella no longer had to enter clubs through side doors or face unfair treatment. In a 1972 interview, Ella said, "I owe Marilyn Monroe a real debt." Their friendship made a big difference in Ella's career and opened doors for her. The bond between these two icons became so famous that it inspired a play called Marilyn and Ella in 2008.
You were involved in a lawsuit and sued an airline company for racial discrimination. Whatever happened to that? What was the outcome?
We won.
Ella brought joy and comfort to people around the world. She wasn't just popular in the United States. She gained fame across the globe. During World War II, her music gave people hope in dark times. For example, her song, The Muffin Man, was sent to London to lift the spirits of those enduring the Blitz, a period of intense bombing by Germany.
You know the Muffin Man who dwells in Drury Lane.
Hundreds of copies of the song made their way overseas to cheer people up. Just like many other performers at the time, Ella volunteered to entertain soldiers through the United Service Organizations, or USO. She sang for troops and helped them forget, even just for a little while, about the hardships of war. However, even while serving her country, Ella had to face the harsh reality of racial discrimination. In the 1940s, African-American performers like Ella were treated unfairly, even when they were helping to boost morale. Many USO shows were segregated, meaning black and white people couldn't mix. Out of 3,000 USO clubs, only 109 allowed African-American visitors, and those were staffed by white volunteers. During her travels, Ella was limited to certain train cars and hotels that allowed black guests. At that time, Ella had trouble finding a seat in a segregated train car. She decided to sit in the whites-only section, and when the conductor told her to leave, a group of white sailors defended her and insisted she stay. Despite the constant discrimination, Ella didn't let it stop her. She filled her schedule with performances for the troops. At just 24 years old, she became a special attraction at USO shows. Another situation where she was treated unfairly happened when she and some band members were arrested in Houston, Texas, simply for playing dice in their dressing room. This was just an excuse to target her because of her race. At the police station, they even had the nerve to ask for her autograph. Ella handled these situations with grace, but she didn't let people walk all over her. Also, while traveling for a tour in Australia, Ella and her team were forced off a Pan-American flight, even though she had first-class tickets. The airline wouldn't even let them reboard to retrieve their bags. Because of this, Ella had to cancel her first 2 shows in Australia. She filed a lawsuit for $270,000, stating that she had suffered humiliation and pain because of this treatment. Later, she shared that she received a nice settlement and said she wouldn't hesitate to sue again if someone treated her unfairly.
We won a nice settlement, but my manager felt, Norman Granz felt that the important thing was to prove that our point and to prove that we really had tickets on the airline.
She later shared in a biography, Ella Fitzgerald, "Something to live for. I feel grateful that I've been able to pay all those dues. That's how we become greater." In this way, she showed others that facing challenges can make a person stronger.
Would you do that kind of thing again?
What do you mean, sue?
Yes.
Yes. Yes, if I think a person's wrong, if we think somebody's wrong. And
Ella also faced challenges just because she was a woman in a male-dominated jazz world. Back then, people didn't take women as seriously as men in jazz. It affected how Ella and other women in jazz were treated. Even though Ella could sing in ways few others could, some people still didn't fully respect her talent. Sometimes they would label her as a novelty, meaning they saw her as an entertaining act rather than a serious artist. They didn't always recognize her skill and hard work as they did with male jazz musicians. This meant that she was sometimes pushed aside or only allowed to perform in certain settings, limiting her career opportunities. Ella faced tough financial problems, and she had difficulties with the Internal Revenue Service, IRS, which created a lot of stress for her. The financial trouble started with unpaid taxes. The IRS claimed Fitzgerald owed money from her earnings and wanted her to pay. Back then, many musicians and entertainers didn't always understand the complicated tax rules. Fitzgerald's earnings were often managed by agents and managers who may not have handled things carefully. For someone like Fitzgerald, who was focused on her art, it was easy to overlook how much money she needed to set aside for taxes. As a result, she ended up owing a large sum of money. The IRS demanded payments, which added a lot of pressure on Fitzgerald. She wasn't just a singer, she was a hard-working performer, but now she had to think about tax payments, deadlines, and penalties. This was a heavy burden that affected her life and her work. Because of her debt to the IRS, Fitzgerald had to keep performing to make enough money. Even though she might have wanted to take a break or choose fewer concerts, she didn't have that option. She took on many performances to earn more and pay off her tax debt. This constant travel and performing took a toll on her health, but she kept going because she needed the income. Performing continuously was not easy. Traveling to different cities and countries while singing on stage every night demanded a lot of energy.
Everybody wondered how the hell would she marry somebody, a man from the street. He was a street hustler.
Fitzgerald had a challenging love, though she sang many love songs. Her own marriages didn't go smoothly. In her life, she was married at least twice and possibly a third time, though it was never confirmed. Ella's first marriage was to a dock worker named Benny Cornegay. Unfortunately, it was a very short-lived marriage. It only lasted a year before it was annulled, which means it was legally canceled, almost like it never happened. Later in life, Ella didn't talk much about this marriage, almost as if she wanted to forget it entirely. After this, she moved on, focusing more on her music career.
He would be taking her money and everything, and I guess they didn't allow that because she was too valuable, so they broke that up.
She got an annulment.
Ella's second marriage was to a jazz bassist named Ray Brown. This marriage lasted a bit longer, and Ray Brown was someone who shared her love for jazz music. During their time together, they even adopted a young boy who was actually Ella's nephew. They named him Ray Brown Jr. after his adoptive father. Although Ella and Ray Brown divorced later, they stayed on good terms. Unlike many divorced couples, they remained friends and even worked together in the music world for years afterward. Their son, Ray Brown Jr., grew up around music and eventually became a jazz musician too.
We're going out tonight.
However, because Ella's career was so demanding, she spent a lot of time away from home, constantly traveling to perform. This led to some distance between her and Ray Jr. He once mentioned that they had a strained relationship at times because Ella's busy schedule kept her from being present in his life. This was difficult for both of them, as Ella loved him deeply but struggled to balance her career and family. Now there's also a mysterious third marriage in Ella's story. In 1957, rumors started that she had married a Norwegian man named Thor Einar Larsen. However, this marriage was very secretive, and Ella never actually spoke about it in public. Some people say they did marry, while others believe it was just a rumor. If they did marry, it didn't last long. Thor Larsen had a troubled past, which included a theft conviction in Sweden, where he was sentenced to 5 months of hard labor for stealing from his ex-fiancée. After this, Ella ended the relationship, and it seems she wanted to put this part of her life behind her. Despite being loved by fans everywhere, Ella dealt with a lot of personal isolation. She often felt lonely, partly because she was always traveling. This lifestyle took a toll on her family connections, especially with her son. Ella faced serious health problems that got worse as she got older. Yet even when her body told her to slow down, Ella kept singing, even if it meant risking her health. Her health was starting to show signs of damage. First, she had problems with her eyes. Doctors found a cataract in one eye, which made her vision cloudy. She had surgery to remove it, but later she suffered from an eye hemorrhage, where blood leaked into her eye, making her vision even worse. Besides her eye troubles, Ella was also dealing with respiratory illnesses, which made it hard for her to breathe. She often had to go to the hospital to get better, but she would always come back to perform soon after. In 1986, her health took another hit. She had to undergo quintuple bypass surgery, which is a major heart surgery to open up blocked arteries. Most people would rest for a long time after such a big operation, but Ella was back on stage just 9 months later. She was performing at least once a month into the early 1990s. Her friend Phoebe Jacobs once explained why Ella couldn't stop singing. She was addicted to it. Singing was her life, and she felt bored if she stayed at home. But there was another reason she kept working. She needed the money. When her half-sister passed away, Ella took on the responsibility of financially supporting her extended family, which meant she had to keep performing to make enough money. As Ella's health got worse, it became clear that diabetes was affecting her body. This disease led to a heartbreaking moment for Ella. Doctors had to amputate both of her legs below the knees due to complications from diabetes. This was a huge loss for Ella, as it finally forced her to stop touring. She could no longer travel and perform like she used to, which was very hard for her.
Ladies and gentlemen, Joe Frazier, Ken Norton, and the all-time champion of the world, Ella Fitzgerald.
Sadly, at the age of 79, Ella passed away after suffering a stroke. Her death was felt by fans all over the world. Just a few hours after she passed, the famous Playboy Jazz Festival was held at the Hollywood Bowl, and they paid tribute to her by displaying "Ella, We Will Miss You" on the marquee. Her funeral was kept private, and she was laid to rest at Inglewood Park Cemetery in California.
And the living is easy.
She was also a strong voice for civil rights. Throughout her career, she used her talent and fame to stand up for what was right. In 1949, a man named Norman Granz invited Ella to join the Jazz at the Philharmonic Tour. This tour went to many places where people were usually separated by race. Norman Granz had a rule that he wouldn't let Ella perform unless the promoters agreed to have no white-only or colored-only seating. He also made sure that Ella was paid fairly, the same as anyone else, no matter her race or gender. If these rules weren't followed, he would cancel the show. This helped Ella perform in places where black musicians were often treated poorly. Ella earned respect for her bravery. Some even called her a civil rights crusader because she stood up for her rights and the rights of others. In 1987, she received the National Medal of Arts and later the Presidential Medal of Freedom, two huge honors in the United States. In 1993, Ella started the Ella Fitzgerald Charitable Foundation to give back to her community. Her foundation provides grants for education, music programs, basic needs for people struggling, and medical research focused on diabetes, heart disease, and vision problems. Ella also supported groups like the American Heart Association and the City of Hope. Through her foundation, she wanted to help people in need, especially kids and those at risk.
And the winner is, pull it out and open it up.
Fitzgerald and pass.
Ella was celebrated also for her groundbreaking achievements in music. Over her career, Fitzgerald earned numerous awards and honors that acknowledged her contribution to jazz and popular music. Her list of accolades is impressive, reflecting her impact on the music world and beyond. One of her most notable achievements was winning 13 Grammy Awards. This included a Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award in 1967, a recognition few artists receive. In 1958, she became the first African-American woman to win a Grammy at the very first Grammy Awards show, a historic moment in music history. Ella's talents were recognized with awards from prestigious institutions. She received the Kennedy Center Medal of Honor and the National Medal of Arts, both highly regarded awards given to artists who make lasting contributions to American culture. Fitzgerald was also awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom, one of the highest civilian honors in the United States. These awards placed her in the same league as America's greatest artists and icons. Beyond these, she was celebrated with several Lifetime Achievement Awards. The Society of Singers even named their Lifetime Achievement Award the Ella in her honor. The George and Ira Gershwin Award for Lifetime Musical Achievement and an honorary doctorate from Yale University in 1986 were further recognitions of her musical influence. In 1990, Harvard University honored her with an honorary degree in music, solidifying her place in the academic and cultural world. Ella's influence extended beyond her lifetime. Various musicians, including Ann Hampton Callaway, Dee Dee Bridgewater, and Patty Austin, recorded albums as tributes to her. These albums celebrated her legacy through the jazz standards she popularized. For example, Callaway's To Ella with Love features jazz standards Fitzgerald performed, while Bridgewater's Dear Ella includes musicians who work closely with Fitzgerald. Her legacy lives on in physical tributes too. In her hometown, Newport News, Virginia, an annual music festival celebrates her contribution to music. There is also a theater named in her honor, the Ella Fitzgerald Theater, located close to her birthplace. Yonkers, New York, where she spent much of her youth, has a bronze sculpture of Ella by artist Vinnie Bagwell. This statue is part of the African American Heritage Trail of Westchester County. In 2007, Ella's image appeared on a United States postage stamp as part of the Black Heritage series, highlighting her importance as an African American icon. Google celebrated her 96th birthday in 2013 with a Google Doodle, showing her performing on stage, an image that brought smiles to many who grew up listening to her music. In recent years, there has been renewed interest in Ella's life and legacy. In 2019, a documentary titled Ella Fitzgerald, Just One of Those Things was released, featuring rare footage and interviews with musicians and her family, providing new insights into her life. In 2023, she was ranked at number 45 on Rolling Stone's list of the 200 greatest singers of all time. Her legacy continues to inspire new generations of musicians and music lovers worldwide.